Hello everyone. Today I have a truly exciting game between Daniel Cawdery and Milan Chovan, a Slovakian player. And this was played in 2017 in an FSGM tournament. I needed to Google that, and that means the first Saturday chess tournament in Budapest, Hungary. So this was played in Budapest, Hungary in 2017. The photo of Milan is a bit outdated, so if anyone has a new photo, please send. He is a bit older, born 1998, so 21 years old at the moment. Strong FM, and we will see how strong in a moment. So we've got the moves e4, c5, knight to 3, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes, knight to 6, knight to 3, and then the Najdorf. And now we see Daniel Cawdery chooses to put his bishop on g5, specific choice, and then move e6. A note to players is that the move e6 is kind of necessary here because um, you can't do something like h6 because then you're just doubling the pawn, and both ways are a bit annoying. So e6 is necessary. Sorry, I was just showing the other way. This is probably better, but it's still annoying. Carlsen did play this against Fallujah a while ago in a bullet match. So for bullet maybe, but serious game you won't be doing something like this. So e6 is played, and it's also different to the pawn being on e5 because now you can prep the move d5 yourself. Okay, f4 main line, and now knight b d7. Okay, so this is a very specific system playing knight b d7. Main line is queen b6, attacking that pawn on b2, and a lot of the responses from white lead to something sharp. For instance, queen d2, black can take that pawn, queen takes b2, rook b1, queen a3, and f5 seems enough compensation for white. Black also doesn't need to take that pawn after queen d2. He could play something like knight c6, and then he would have to deal with bishop takes f6 again, but it should be fine. Or he could play bishop e7 himself, but then you need to deal with e5, and e5 should be quite crushing. So knight b d7 at this moment could also be a move. So switching the order like that would change the game a bit, because in the game the queen ends on c7 and it's castle kingside. So that could have been an option, and you're actually just helping white maybe by getting the queen to d2 if you're not going to take that pawn. So Chovan makes a good move in that respect, not committing to a sharp line against Cawdery, who is pretty well prepared for this game, as we will see in a second. He goes knight b d7. Cawdery goes main line, queen f3, preparing queenside castles. You see queen c7 and queenside castles as we expected. Now b5, running up the board. And recently, Shirov, I think in 2008, played against Ivanchuk and some other strong player, and they all went bishop d3 against Anand. This is Shirov. He lost a few games against Black going bishop d3. So Cawdery goes for the stronger line. He goes e5, and this is a pretty cool line because after the move bishop b7, the queen's being attacked, the knight's under attack, but then the queen goes to h3, setting up a sack on e6. And you need to deal with this knight, which is under fire immediately. So you go d takes e5, but then the sack cannot be avoided. And okay, you need to kind of take this bishop because of the queen. F takes e6, queen takes, and defended. Now, Cawdery plays this line in a quite a good way. He did his homework because bishop takes b5 immediately leads to a draw. Most commonly like this after queen c6 or even queen b6. We see the knight entering into d6 check, and after the many king jumps, we see bishop takes f6 and g takes maybe, and then just the checks of here should lead to a draw. If the king tries to abandon, obviously this knight would be taken, And if he tries to abandon on this side, then this knight's under fire, for instance, or it's just mate. And so we see the king really needs to stay between these two pawns. And this is after the bishop takes b5 line. Now, Alexander Grishuk and these guys have been playing this as well and just getting draws because it's a pretty straightforward line that leads to a draw. Cawdery goes bishop takes f6 immediately, and that really forces the pawn to recapture. So, um, which makes quite a difference, I think, because in some of the lines you could uh, maybe blunder bishop takes b5 after a takes, knight takes, queen c6. After something like knight d6 check and king d8, now recapturing, I think, might just cost you the game because bishop takes is possible now. There isn't a pin anymore. So Cawdery takes on f6 immediately. I think I should show you a line from Grishuk's game where this ended in a draw. So I think this is the position after bishop takes, knight takes b7 check, queen takes. All of these lines mostly lead to draws because of the open king, but you need to be careful here. This was the last line. Okay, so queen c6, and we can look at queen c6, and then the move knight d6 check, king d8, and now f takes e5. This is the other way of playing it. Remember, you can't take here now because the bishop's going to take back, so you go f takes e5 in this line, and king c7, and you can go look at all these lines. They all pretty much lead to a draw. After something like this, you always see this rook coming down to a2. That's the threat, and even though white has compensation, this leads to a draw after rook a1. The queen gets active. You can see it like this, and g4, g5, and eventually it should fizzle out into a draw with the king needing to safeguard this rook. That's applying the pressure so that black can't do anything else, and the queen needs to check. So we see king d2 holding onto that rook, and then simple draws like this should occur. But still a very sharp line. But the sack on b5 basically shows you want to draw. Now, after taking on f6 first, this pawn is forced, and now he sacks on b5. He just changes the order a bit to secure the drawing position, but that isn't really his plan. So knight takes b5 and queen c6, knight check. And now there's a different way to also draw this position. I would actually have just recommended king d8 for Milan. This would have been a more simpler draw. You're up two pieces, and white probably just needs to continue checking your sorry, you can't do it like that because then your king escapes. So pretty sharp line. So he needs to go knight takes b7 check, and now he gets a position like this where he gets the queen. Compared to the game, this seems a lot better to what happened. He went for giving up the queen immediately after knight d6 check, and this is fine. Okay, so knight c6 is played. This is still fine. Milan has played this perfectly well, and knight c5 is on the board. You want to be able to recapture the rook. At the moment, it's pinned. Queen f5. Now recapturing the rook is still a danger because of queen takes f6. That loses the game. So you need to get rid of the queen again. So he plays bishop e4, queen h5, and at this moment they're probably still both in theory. But then after the move bishop g6, Cawdery plays a move that hasn't been played in a long while, and it seems that this is the moment he gets himself some sort of initiative. So he plays the move queen f3. More commonly has been the move queen d1, and then after rook takes a2, we see the move king b1 to, sorry, oh, that's spoilers. Let's just get back to that position. So we got the sack and then the queen. Okay, so after the move queen d1, rook takes a2. I went off of my line. King b1 stops this nasty business, and rook a7 should still just be a drawish line. Don't see much for white to do, and you're still playing three minor pieces against the queen, and there's something for black to achieve here, especially with this threat coming in. Okay, so queen f3 was played, and now Milan kind of didn't respond to queen f3 in the correct fashion. He went e4, which shuts down the queen. I think a more straightforward way would have been to go on bishop e4 and maybe just repeat this position like so, and then ask Cawdery if he wants to go queen d1 now. The difference being through going e4 immediately is now queen d1. You don't have the threat of knight b3 after rook takes a2 lines, with this bishop being cut off. So he does the right thing. He goes knight d3, check, and cuts off communication. So if the knight is captured like this, you capture the rook. And so it's captured with the rook and recaptured. And Daniel Cawdery goes queen g4, hitting the pawn on c8. And this is probably a good move because you can't go rook takes a2 anymore because of queen c8 check, king f7, and now simply picking up the rook like this. Not picking that rook up is your using your other rook. Okay, so this is the threat of queen g4, and his opponent goes d takes c. Better way would have still been just to go on f5 and secure your king side. D takes c is a bit too much, I think, and this allows Cawdery to go rook e1. Rook e1 and rook d8. We have queen e6 threat, but then trading off that rook down there, like so. And now we reach a endgame situation where Cawdery has done quite well to preserve some pawns on the queen side. You wouldn't usually have a pawn on a2 in this line. So now I think black could have played the endgame a bit better, but he didn't. He kind of messed it up, I would say, immediately. He went bishop f7 to chase this queen away. Now, if you're playing black in this situation, you need to mobilize your two bishops and rook immediately to counter on the queen side. So it kind of makes sense that he wants to go bishop f8 and then maybe one day bring his king around and have the rook see to the light of day. But a better way would have just been to go on king f8 immediately, and then after, let's say, a4, to have tried play on the king side. This might have even allowed a blunder, a5, and then suddenly the rook is entering on the king side. But if not, it would have just been a bit better for black to have tried developing in this fashion. Something like queen b6, now we get king g7, and the rook enters. What Milan tried wasn't that far off, but this shift would have been a bit better, something like this, and you would have tried play on the king side and then switched over to the queen side. But Cawdery chose a good position in the end line, with the king and pieces being cut off on the queen side by the queen herself. So even though black has got quite nice pieces and compensation for the queen side gets rolling because of the way the king side is under fire. So we've got bishop f7, check, and now suddenly you see the problem with black's position. After two checks, pieces are already cut together. King f8, and the pawns start rolling, other pawn starts rolling, and now the rook can get over. Something like rook d8 check would have been a bit better to try and use these squares for the bishop to catch the pawns there, maybe use the diagonal. He played the more mysterious move, rook e8, and Cawdery just continued with the pawns. After bishop d4, now we see the threat of rook e8, but we realize it's not really a threat. These bishops want to come down, and he wants the mate here. So what does Cawdery do? He just continues b7, and the bishop does come down, but here's the trick. The pawn of the square on b2 is still available to escape. So we've got king c1, just avoiding mate on e1, and after this check, now the king is free to roll. King d2, and we realize now that black can't really stop this pawn from coming through anymore, so he checks. The king gets to e2, that rook's defended. Queen c8, nice move, just preparing to make a queen, and after bishop takes a1, that rook's chopped, and we have our own new queen. One or two moves played, but now we realize that white's just continuing with the extra pawn and big piece, and there's not much black can hope for in this position. So it was in this position Milan Chovan resigned. To recap the game, this is excellent opening preparation, and the nuance on taking the piece on f6 first was quite good to make sure that the pawn needs to capture so that your draw lines do end in a draw. And then after Milan chose to do this, Cawdery did quite well to insert the move queen f3 first, which was a new move, and then forcing this kind of mistake. And then the endgame was just laid quite clearly. You have the pass pawns on the queen side, and they need to roll, but first you need to immobilize the pieces on the queen side. This was an excellent game, something like 8 average centi pawn loss for Daniel Cawdery. I hope you enjoyed.